Hi, this is John from GravWell. In this video, I'm going to introduce alerts, a feature in GravWell which aims to simplify a lot of common automation tasks. First, I'll talk about why we built the alerts feature, then I'll explain what exactly alerts are, and finally, I'll show how to create an alert. When we introduced flows, we quickly saw that many customers were deploying essentially the same flow over and over again. They would run a query, then if there were any results from the query, they would send an email or a Slack notification or take some sort of action. Repeat the pattern once for every query you want to monitor, and pretty quick you have tens or hundreds of flows that all do basically the same thing. But what happens if you need to change the recipient of these emails? Do you go in and modify 50 flows? We saw the opportunity to formalize this pattern with alerts. An alert links one or more scheduled searches to one or more flows. If any of the scheduled searches return results when it runs, every linked flow is executed once per result. Thus you can have dozens of scheduled searches, each checking a different data source with a customized query. But if any of them finds anything, they can notify using the same standardized flow, and if you need to change the action taken, you only have to modify one thing. We call the scheduled searches dispatchers, which generate events. The flows which process these events are called consumers. We use these generic terms because we intend to add support for other types of dispatchers and consumers in the future. Let's build an alert and see how it all goes together. First, we go to the Alerts Management page and create a new alert. I'll just populate the name and description. Then I'll set a tag. Each time a dispatcher generates an event, we log that event into the specified tag. Last, I'll set max events to 32. This is basically a safety limiter, so you don't get 1,000 emails if you mess up your scheduled search. Now I'll save and exit so we can go define our scheduled search dispatchers. Here's two scheduled searches I prepared earlier. One looks in Linux auth logs to find root logins, and the other finds logins by the admin GravWell user. Note that both of these are set to run over the last minute, every minute. Note how both use the table renderer with the exact same columns, hostname, remote host, and service. This is on purpose. By making my scheduled search results look the same, I can treat them interchangeably in the alert. Let's go back to the alert we defined and add these as dispatchers. Now at this point, the alert can already provide value. If I enable the alert and save it, anytime either of these scheduled searches find results, those results will be ingested into the alerts admin logins tag for a permanent record we can query at any time. If I go to the query library, I can then query that tag, alerts admin logins, and I could see the alert that was generated and ingested. Note that there's a lot of metadata here, like who owns the alert, what the dispatcher was, and then there's also the actual contents of the results. Here's the host name, here's the remote host, and here's the service. But we'd like to get actual notifications when these things occur, so let's continue. First, we're going to take a quick diversion into schemas. It's optional, but it's always a good idea to define a schema for your alert. It helps make sure all the dispatchers are outputting the same fields, and it makes it easier to develop your consumer flows. We'll define a very simple schema which specifies the three output fields from the scheduled searches we're already using, which are hostname, remote host, and service. Now because our dispatchers both output these three fields, everything is happy. However, if I add another field, which they don't produce, we get errors. This helps you make sure that your dispatchers are actually outputting what you expect them to output. The best reason to define a schema is that it makes it easier for us to now build a consumer flow for this alert. First, let's disable this alert so that the alert doesn't trigger until our flow is ready. Now let's create a new flow. We'll start with a blank flow. We'll name this flow admin logins notification. Give it a description. And then we'll associate it with that newly created alert. Now that we're associated with the alert, we can set an alert context that will be used when we're debugging our flow. Go back over here. From this dropdown, we'll select the admin logins context. Basically, the flow builder asks GravWell to generate some example data that looks like what it'll get when the alert triggers. It's just random data though, so let's edit the sample payload to give it better values. Down here at the bottom, we'll change the host name to GravWell. We'll change the remote host to 1.1.1.1. And we will change the service to SSH. We'll save that. Now when this flow runs, we'll have that content already in the incoming payload. So we could just use a simple text template to format the alert data into something human-friendly. I'll just paste in the desired string. Then we'll hook it to a notification node. Normally, we'd send an email or something a little less ephemeral, but it's a lot easier to show notifications in a video, and the idea is the same. We'll set the contents of the message to be template output, the output of the text template node. Now, we'll save the flow, and then go back to our alerts page and enable the alert again. After a minute, the scheduled search will run, detecting the login. It'll trigger the alert, which will in turn run the flow. And then we see our notification arrives. Now I'll go ahead and do a GravWell login in another window. When that scheduled search detects the GravWell login, it updates the exact same notification ID, so it actually changes the contents of the previously viewed notification. We could add as many scheduled searches as we like to this alert, and they'll all notify the exact same way, provided they all output the same set of fields. A more typical application would use a Slack, Mattermost, or email node to produce a more permanent record of the notification. I hope this video has shown how GravWell alerts can simplify your alerting workflow through code reuse. With alerts, it's easy to grow your monitoring surface over time without massive flow proliferation. Thanks for watching.